I'm leaving. Okay, so my vocal intro to that song was fucking fire.
Facts.
I want
That'll
to
come
hear
out
it
in the
louder next
recording.
time. I want to hear it. I want to hear it louder this time.
Ah, shit, we got echo.
Who's got the echo? Yeah. Fabian?
Probably the guy that just had headphones in and now does not.
Echo cancellation. Oh,
I think it's his room.
Did
there we
that
go.
work?
Damn.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Ladies
gone.
and gentlemen, actually just gentlemen, we are live to the Men's League Arena, episode 2, 7:07, October 6, 2025, right on time. Thank you very much for joining us all tonight. I feel like we got a bit of a lively group here. We could have a little bit of fun tonight. So as always, grateful to be here with you, gentlemen. And for those of you watching, grateful for you as well to have joined us. And yeah, we're excited to talk about our second topic of the arena schedule, and that is brotherhood and friendship. It's one that's obviously very near and dear to our hearts. It's something that we all built over many years of communicating with each other, not only in this space, in men's league, in our personal lives, and all across the board. So a very great topic to discuss amongst us five very close friends. We chat very very often, and so yeah, I think we'll be able to provide a ton of great insight on brotherhood, what it means to us, and the pros of having it, and all things brotherhood. Yeah, so a little bit of, I guess, a round table to start. We'll keep it quick, just a hey, how are you from each one of you guys. Let's start with Atlas to my top and left. Hello, sir.
Whoa, you shocked me with that one. I didn't see that coming. Hello. Yes, we're lively. I mean, the Jays are up 2-0, so there's not really a whole lot to be down about. And it's, what's worse? I'm not even actually a baseball fan. So I'm good. I feel great. Broncos won and beat the Eagles, and my life is flying. I don't think I had a better sports weekend since I don't know when. So, and muted.
Oh, like that was. I think that was. What was the over under set on the Jays Yankees series coming up? 2 minutes. I think it was under. That's actually very impressive. Thank you for that, Atlas. And I mean, who else could I even think about passing it off to? Now, Mr. Stephanie Rosario, how you doing?
Yeah, the only reason you haven't had a better sports weekend is because the Blue Jays haven't won since I was 3 years old. So that's why.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah, there's plenty to be down about for me because I'm a diehard Yankee fan. So yeah, I'm coming out as a Yankee fan here on the in the arena. Yeah, not having a great time, but what do they say in Toronto? Can someone explain some Toronto slang to me? What the hell is tutu's my word? I
Okay,
picked
you
it up
know
from
what's so
context
funny?
clues.
I just did this like yesterday. Okay, I was telling Gabby, I was like, "Yo, tutus, my fam," and then she's like, "What's tutus?" And I was like, I had to Google it, and tutus is like real quick. Like I'll be there real quick, or we're gonna get this done real quick. Yo, I'll be there tutus, fam.
And that's
Yeah,
a
so I
Toronto
saw
thing, or is okay?
supposedly it's like Toronto like hood slang. I don't know. I got lost on the wrong side of TikTok, and it was just a bunch of Toronto kids with Toronto slang. So yeah, tutu's my word, fam. This doesn't work without the Canadian accent. Um, yeah, even if the Jays, I don't see the Jays winning the World Series. They might beat us. I don't see them winning the World Series.
All right, moving on. Carrie Kish, how you doing?
Right on. Yeah. Well, that didn't take long to get into that. I guess I'll share the highlight of my sports weekend, which was golf with my boys on Sunday, which was great. Squeezing it all in before the course is closed. So, yeah, get ready to get into it. We talk about brotherhood and friendship and everything else, and happy to start that on the home front with my kids. So, ready to get into it tonight. Back to
Love
you,
it.
Derek.
Good for
Love it.
you, because
Thank you
it
very
was
much.
freezing this morning. Can we talk about that for a second? Whoa.
It is fall. It has arrived here in Canada. We're talking
Can't
about
relate.
like, yeah, I'm sure it's nice and
3 degrees
balmy.
Celsius at tee off. 3 degrees
Yeah,
Celsius at tee off. That's where we
nice.
were. But it warmed up
No,
to a balmy 8, so we're good.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, Mr. Warner, how you doing?
Great. Great.
Nice.
I'm going to bring it right back to where we started, back to the baseball talk. First of all,
Okay.
I saw Stefan percolating the entire time Alice was talking, so I knew he was going to come back with something. He was waiting to drop that "you haven't won since we were 3" comment. Secondly, I don't know how you can watch them absolutely obliterate the Yankees and say they have no chance of winning the World Series. If they were winning like 5-4 or 3-2, I'd be like, okay, they're absolutely boot stomping the Yankees right now. So
Yeah, and I
I'm
can
just
tell you
saying,
how though.
well, I'm just saying. I mean, if you see a team doing
Sure.
that, I'd be like, now I know it's early, so I don't want us to count our chickens too quickly here, boys. But 'cause it'll be a really bad arena episode next time if it doesn't go our way. Just throwing it out there. But anyway, there's that. And then the other
No,
thing that I found
I
super fun.
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Get in there.
I say that because the Blue Jays beat us, pretty good during the season. I didn't expect us to do good versus the Blue Jays at all. Now, do I
All
expect the
right.
Blue Jays to do good versus anybody else? I don't think so.
All right, interesting. I'm going to hold that
Yeah.
to not a bitter Yankees fan. And then the other piece I found hilarious was that Atlas, not even knowing, also threw in that his football team also beat Stefan's favorite football team, which
Whew.
is the Eagles. And you
That
didn't
is
even,
true.
are you not an Eagles? I thought you were an Eagles supporter because you live in
Me?
Philly. Yeah.
Don't you ever in your fucking life say that again.
Who are you a fan of?
Did
Are you a
you?
Giants fan?
Yes, I'm a Giants fan. Oh, you didn't know like that wasn't
Well,
on
when
purpose? You
you
really thought I was
lived
an
in,
Eagles
no,
fan?
yeah, you lived in Philly. I thought we talked about this before. I thought you
It's
said
about
that
an
Philly.
hour from Philly. No, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, but New York teams are my home teams.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right. Okay, my bad, my bad, my
Yeah.
bad.
Hmm.
Other than
Eagles.
that,
So
we
the
good.
only reason I'm cool with the Eagles at all, because they are, I mean, it's not it's not the Eagles fans. Anyone that's not an Eagles fan knows that Eagles fans are the most depraved sports fans in the world. Go ahead, put it in public on the internet. Don't care. It's true.
Hmm.
Um, Saquon Barkley is from Whitehall, Pennsylvania, where my wife and I, um, well, the last place we lived and where she grew up.
Wow,
So
That's
very
like the
cool.
diner that's like right up the street from his high school always has signs about Barkley and stuff. So I like Barkley. I think he's cool. I'm upset that he left the Giants still, but I get it. But no, I'm not an Eagles fan. Don't ever say that again in your life, please.
Yes, I'll second Stefan on that one. Let's go Big Blue. Jackson Dart's looking great. Very excited about what that's gonna look like in the next few years.
I'm
I mean, a lot
excited,
of
not
sports.
hopeful.
Yes, yes, yes. True. A lot of sports talk, which the leagues we're talking about, anyways, is based off brotherhood. There's a lot of big teams, lots of men playing sports together, and I know a bunch of us grew up playing sports, and brotherhood is certainly a big piece of being involved in sports and going to battle on a field or a court or a sheet of ice, if you will, up here, Stefan. So yeah, very excited to jump into it. We've got a great tier of questions, I think. So we've got like one to warm us up, a second one that gets pretty deep, and then a third one that's going to make you think. So I'm very, very excited about the diversity of the questions this time, fellas. Thank you. Keep up the good work. First and foremost, we'll get started here. And this is a question to each one of you guys. What does true brotherhood look like, and how does it shape the way men show up for each other? We are going to go reverse order, and we're going to start with Fabian on my screen. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's never when I
shoulders.
want to go first. It's
Yeah.
never, it's like when
Uh,
I have it, I'm like, okay.
I'll repeat the question. What
Please
does
do.
what does true brotherhood look like, and how does it shape the way men show up for each other?
I think true brotherhood to me would be a place where it doesn't matter the length of time that you go, it doesn't matter the distance between. It's those kinds of guys that you can see at any point and pick up right where you left off. It's the ones where they know when to razz you about the Yankees sucking terribly in the playoffs and getting absolutely boot stomped, like 12-1, and then like getting boot stomped again, which no one, I thought it was a replay when I was watching the second game. I'm like, is this a replay from yesterday? So the guys you can razz like that, and you know when the time's right, but if shit gets serious, you know how to flip the switch and be there for them with an empty cup so they can unload whatever they need to unload. I think to
I'm
me,
not your friend anymore.
Yeah, so that's a pretty quick answer to it, Derek. But I'm sure I'm going to listen to these amazing guys speak, and then I'm going to want to come back in. But that's how I'd set the table for it. Was there a second piece of the question that I missed?
No. And how does it shape the way men show up for each other?
Well, okay, I guess I could go over a little further. How it shapes how men show up. If you don't have true brotherhood, I think a lot of guys don't end up sharing the deeper shit. Because the regular human natural instinct, I think, of men is to completely razz and destroy. When you give them a piece of, there's a little blood in the water, they're coming after that. And I think if you don't have true brotherhood, then you never really feel comfortable enough to get to that point of sharing some of the deeper things, some of the things that are actually probably weighing you down. So yeah, that's how I would pitch it.
Excellent answer. Very good. Very good answer for our first question, sir. And for the record, it was your question, so no excuses on that one. Well done, Stefan. You left and came
we're
back.
timing out people for these questions.
You left and came back, and you jumped order. So now you are up next, sir.
Okay. I don't know how that worked, but yeah, sure. Okay. I have trouble with these super broad questions, so I might have to make it more specific just to answer it and not get paralyzed in trying to answer it. True brotherhood, at least a piece of it, probably the biggest piece of it, in my opinion, is that they will check you when you're wrong, right? And not just check you when you're wrong, as in like just like little dumb stuff. I mean like severe character issues. My wife and I actually had a conversation about this. I had a friend of mine a while back that um, he was not faithful to his wife, but me and him were cool. And I always had a back and forth with like, should I be friends with this guy? Because he's a good friend to me, but he has some serious issues that he's dealing with. And what that came down to, which we might get into later on, a little more details, like which way does the influence go? Does it go my way or his way? In that specific case, it was, a case of like me, like trying to get him to like stop being a shitbag. But had it been the other way, then that wouldn't have sufficed for that, checking each other that I'm referencing. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that like you can look at each other and make each other better. Um, so many male friendships, because our nature is to keep things simple, is we just kind of want to mind our own business, or just let people be, or just share in the toxicity just for the sake of just not bothering, right? Just keeping things easy. Um, so yeah, if you're able to check each other and actually make each other better people, if you're not able to do that, then it's like, well, it's not even like why are you there, as much as like I know why you're there, and it's not good, and it's even worse in my opinion than being alone. So
Very good answer, Mr. Karakish.
Yeah, thank you. So building on the first two, I mean, both of them great part. I think there are definitely parts of it, but I think the one thing that I would add into the mix is the brotherhood of a place where you feel you could also share and be comfortable that who you're sharing with, if it's something that you want to keep between in the lanes, like they're going to keep it in that room and not judge and kind of go off on things where someone starts sharing, then all of a sudden someone says something and then they completely shut down. In a brotherhood, that for true friends, you can start sharing, and it's at where you just feel like you can keep pouring, because like, to use Fabian's analogy, the cup, you can keep pouring because there's room and it's going to stay there. And then knowing that they're either, whether you just need someone to listen, whether you need some advice, like whatever that is, but it's a place where you can kind of get it out there and start having those conversations and feel like you belong, right? And accepted, and not fear that judgment.
And how do you feel that shapes the way men show up for each other? Like, how do you think that shapes men today in today's world?
Well, I
Having that
think,
brotherhood.
yeah, I think it, it it gives in the whole narrative of what we're doing here, right? The kind of that thought of you've got to do it alone, and if you can't deal with stuff on your own, you're not a man, you're this, you're that, whatever. And I think that it encourages guys to share and be a part of that, and be vulnerable from a point of growth and expansion without that fear of judgment. So I think it makes us better men when we're able to jump out and share like that in that safe space.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. Mr. Atlas, what does true brotherhood look like to you? And how do you feel it shapes the way men show up for each other today?
I was going to ask you to repeat the question, so thank you for that. You know, brotherhood, when I was thinking about all the answers and the definition of brotherhood, I had to look it up truthfully because like, well, what distinguishes like what a brotherhood is? And so it came up as a community. I don't think that's surprising, like a community of people committed to, similar values or similar likeness. And so I had to start differentiating in my head the difference between a brother, like if I had a brother, literally born brother, and a brotherhood, which would mean like a group of brothers essentially. And so I think that the importance of brotherhood in a group of people to me really stems on the back of what Steph said, which is if you don't have it, I think you can get lost in thinking that you're kind of above the world or you are the best. Like your ego gets to kind of run wild. You get to just be in your own world. No one gut checks you. There's no one to compete with that's literally in your face to like actually beat you here and there. There's no humility involved because you're just kind of in isolation, and it's really easy to get lost in being kind of really great in isolation. And so I noticed for me in my journey, at least, I spent a lot of time kind of living in that zone because I didn't have a group of people that could gut check me, a group of people that would relate with me, a group of men that were committed to something deeper than just locker room talk. Like I never really had that. And so I just said, well, I guess I'm just because I don't fit in there. I guess I'm up here. So, like sorry, almost until it took me a really long time to step away from that and try to find my groove of brotherhood and find the space. And it was really difficult for a really long time. And I would say that men's league is one of the first places that showed up for that for me around like this group of people who aren't looking to kind of be above everybody else. They are just looking to be with each other. And then a couple other groups that I was a part of well that really just kicked my ass, to be honest, and said, "Ooh, I don't have this quite as figured out as I thought." And that I think allowed me to operate in the world with a little bit more, I would say, healthier self-esteem, and it wasn't so all floppy and all over the place. And I think that contributed to the second part of the question, which is I think it keeps men on a bit more of a collaborate versus compete mentality when it comes to like as a person. And then we can healthy competition, on the football field or, when the Jays are rocking it out or, whatever it happens to be. And so I think that's what I like about the brotherhood piece now is finding that and both. That's what I find true brotherhood is now. It's the and both of, we can screw around, but we also can have a conversation that I don't think we ever thought we would have had.
Yeah, very great perspective there. That one hit home for me, man. Like the lack of brotherhood there and what it can do to you. And yeah, I think that's a very well said point. I think you saying that has made me look within a little bit in certain parts of my life, especially over the last couple of years where my connection to brotherhood has lacked then it to a level where it traditionally got to a level traditionally it was probably at an all-time low. And yeah, some of those mental battles, I think we share that some of those there. So very good point. Fabian, I'd love to give you a chance to put a cherry on top of that one.
Well, it's interesting. When you listen to the guys talk, it's when Steph first said what he said, I was like, I can't believe I didn't think of that because that is a really good point. I do think true brotherhood is an allowance to be checked, right? There's a respect there, there's a trust there. Um, it's almost, and it's very, I think that's the rare thing, right? Like I think you can find guys who are buddies who support each other, but can you step outside of the support when your buddy's doing the wrong thing? And I think you touched on what people would deem as toxic masculinity when you said the locker room, how you can kind of just go along with it, like even though you don't truly believe in it, sometimes you just go along with it, not to ruffle the feathers with the guys. And I think that really stuck with me when you said that stuff, because I can think back to times, and Alice, I love how you made it pretty personal. For me, I started thinking as you guys were talking, it's like more personal times, and I can distinctly remember times when I was in the locker room and I kind of just went along with the banter, right? And I would say I'm a classic enabler as is. Like I do like to make people feel comfortable. But there's probably been moments where I recognized that maybe what we were talking about I didn't really necessarily agree with, but I didn't say it at the time. So I'm kind of questioning, well, was that real brotherhood with some of those guys, or was it? Because I do think being authentic and being able to say the hard truths is probably a really key component of brotherhood. So.
But
What's
do you always have to
go
do
ahead.
that though?
Not always,
Because
no.
I've found that more times than not, the best way to shut those kinds of things down is just by not doing it. And even if it isn't like right then and there, like you like take a stand, like you're in, like a 90s sitcom or something like, hey guys, that's not right. Like that, people don't respond to that. But I do remember when I was not, when I didn't give a shit about being a decent person. Um, I can still recall now, like looking back at the guys that consistently just did not participate in any of that. They didn't say anything, they didn't, make a show of it, nothing. They just, they consistently just didn't participate. It just wasn't their thing. And I wanted to end up being more like them because their non-participation made me look at myself and being like, what the hell am I doing? Without them having to, be very loud about it. So there is a place to speak up and say something for sure. But I think within the context of brotherhood, that is one of the biggest things that I found is that it's not the guys that just mind their business and let you do your thing, as much as the guys that very actively do not participate in the things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also say it probably depends on the guy too, right? Like some guys need you to come across if some pull them aside and have a conversation. Other guys, you're right, they would probably just see how you act and as you reflected on it. Because the thing is, not everyone's at the same stage of reflecting on what they're digesting, right? A lot of people will go through life and not even be aware of what other people are doing or how they're doing it, and they're really just in their own bubble. You tend to analyze things, and I think I'm like that too. And if you're an analyzer, you can be affected by taking in how other people are acting and then reflecting on your own behavior. So it kind of also depends on the guys and the people and the dynamic of the group. Which is why it's complicated, man. Like if it was easy,
Definitely.
everyone would do it, and everyone would be perfect, right? Is every human being's different. They respond, they see, they talk, they express differently. So it's kind of like a puzzle piece you try to figure out. But I do think when you hit that thing on brotherhood, the puzzle's coming together for a collective group of guys, right? Like that's what I would say.
Beautiful. Well said, guys. As a moderator here, if I don't have the opportunity to transition from one question to another, I really have no business here. And you guys are so close to going down that path of stealing my transition. So I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to go counterclockwise up to Atlas. And I'm going to say to him with our second question, you guys can ponder it as we go through Atlas and Carrie first. But so Atlas, I'll go to you first. When do you call out a brother's bad behavior, and when do you mind your business and let them be?
Good question. You can hear me still, right? We're good.
We are, yeah, loud and clear. Yeah,
Okay, good.
you're,
When do you call out a brother versus when do you let him be? I mean, it's such a loud question because I would like the answer to just be always like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, come on, like, let's course correct here. I would like it to just be that simple, or I would like it to be, hey, like, your own human, no problem. And so I think that there's so many circumstances that come up for me that muddy the waters for sure. But I do know that if the brother conversation is really important here, because I think there's a big distinction between calling out somebody in your brotherhood or a brother, and there's a big separation between calling out somebody you don't know, and so who is also a man. And I have kind of experience in both where I know the impacts of not doing that and how I felt. And I think that there's probably a way to do it, would be my answer. Kind of feel like I'm circling around to 15 things here. A quick story: way back in the day during COVID, I was Uber Eating because why not? Let's make some money. And I meant to actually Uber, but Uber Eats was the way. And so I go to this late night McDonald's. There's this huge lineup of just dudes, just a bunch of dudes out here doing Uber Eats late at night. We're all waiting, and inside they've locked the door because you're not allowed in. And they bring the food to the front door. They say your name, you grab the food, you know, hustle off to the house. And everyone's in a rush because the quicker you can get orders done, the quicker you can make money and tips and so on. And so it's a bit of a chaotic environment. And I remember hearing these guys get pretty frustrated. Everyone was a little annoyed with the process. Nobody was coming to the door. You couldn't talk to anybody. And finally, this lady comes and she brings a couple of bags of food and hands them out. And then this other guy's like, hey, what about my order? And he like shoves the phone at the window. And she locked the door and she walked away. And he obviously was annoyed by this. And he said, hey, you bitch, come back here. And I remember being stunned that this just happened, but stunned to the point where I kind of shrunk and became this like small person and kind of just trotted my way somewhere else to wait, to not be a part of whatever that was. And it sticks with me from 5 years ago because I know that I didn't like how I showed up in that moment. And so I think it's that for me is one of the latter examples of like what happens for us and how do we get to that point where we feel comfortable calling out poor behavior. And so I would argue the similar thing happens when it comes to people closest to us acting out in that way. Like now it's charged. Now I love you. Now I care for you. Now if I muddy these waters and call you forward, are we still going to be the same? Am I going to rupture this relationship? Is it going to be a problem? And so I would say it's circumstantial to get really cloudy with it. The answer is circumstantial. And it really depends on your delivery and what I guess you're actually moving towards. Is it for them to be better, or is it for you to have the right answer or to tell them what to do? Is it for their betterment? Are you thinking about them and their lives and where they're going as you call them forward, or are you just trying to, you know, have control or tell them what to do, or because you don't like it, now it's about you? I think that would be a helpful differentiator.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'll leave that there. I'm going to circle back with a thought. Kerry, you're up next, man. You've been waiting patiently.
All right. I love it, Atlas. Like there's so many things there that like the advantage of going first, you get that, but then sometimes you get to think about it too, right? But I think it's definitely situational, you know, in the regards, like even in Atlas's example, right? You're sitting around with a whole bunch of people and you don't really, like the situation where it is, and do you know people or not, and everything from there, right? Like if you're calling someone you don't know, much different, because if you don't know a bunch of guys and they're all friends and you call someone out and you get jumped outside McDonald's when you're Uber eating, then I mean, you know, probably not a great idea. But coming back to what we're focusing on here in the terms of when do we call out someone we consider our brother or friend, like in there. Yeah, I think looking at it from the perspective of number one, what is the goal and what is your intention of bringing light to that situation or that moment or calling them out, right? What is the actual intention? And if you can sit in that and see that it's because you generally like have care and love for this and concern for this person's direction and what they're doing, and you can see that it's going to be damaging moving forward, and it's from a point of that awareness, I think that you have a moral obligation as someone's brother to step into that. I think and then on the other side, or if you don't see that intention and it's just you don't really know why, and the only intention is because it's going to make you feel better, or you want to step up on your soapbox and call it out because you're the truth sayer. I think that, you know, you kind of have to double check that, right? But I think overall, at the end of it, I think is how I look at that and how I've always looked at it is, if I was in that situation, would I have liked someone to call me out on that? Would that have helped me? Where would I have been with it? What would that have done moving forward? And if I can see, if I can connect the dots on that, where it's like, hey, I've been there, and because, hey, trust me, I made a lot of mistakes and I continue. I'm a work in progress, man. But if it's like, you know, you shouldn't have said that, that's not the greatest, or maybe you're slipping a little bit. You said you were going to do this and you're not doing it anymore. Like, what does that look like? I welcome that in my world, right? So I think that's a part of it.
Are you able to do that in the moment, Carrie, or is this like, are you able to kind of put yourself like in the other person's shoes, which I think is a really strong point to make here? Are you able to do that in the moment, or is this something you kind of take away, think about, and then kind of come back to afterwards?
Great question. Situational again, I think. Like, is it something where it's an incident in the moment where if you don't say something, for example, like Atlas's example, like, hey, dude, like that's offside, man. You can't talk to people like that, right? Or is it something more so where you see you know, a friend, you know, and someone in your group brotherhood that's kind of sliding a little bit. Maybe you see things they're doing, maybe they're getting into stuff they shouldn't be. Maybe they're not doing, you know, their good habits. Like, you see things happening there, they're just going down a bad path, where it doesn't have to be in the moment, where you can think about it and find a soft way to approach it where it's going to be acceptable. So I think situational there. And I'd love to say that, yeah, I try to make sure that I put myself in that other spot, you know, and think about, if I was in their shoes, what would I like? However, that goes back to the I've made mistakes and work in progress, where it's not always perfect. And I think I've done a job where I've made the great decision and it's been perfect timing, and also where put my foot in my mouth and ate a shit sandwich on top of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, both of it. So that's where I'm at.
Tasty old shit sandwiches. Gotta love those. Hey? Yeah. Steph, you are up next, my friend. You guys are changed. I wrote down one key word here, and after every 20 speaks, it changes my answer. So, Steph, you're up next. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, so real quick on Alice's example, I think the key in a situation like that is tact, because I mean, taught, you know, classes of so many different situations like that, where it's something that seems quite benign, just like, you know, frustration outside of a McDonald's, and it ends up in somebody getting shot. Um, and then there's a story, I think it was Winston Churchill, that he was at some event at someone's house, and he caught someone like trying to steal some of the silver, and instead of confronting them about stealing it, he took a piece of silver and acted like it was in his pocket, and he was like, hey, I think they saw us, we gotta put this back. And you know, just being able to do it that way was just, it was so tactful that it just diffused any escalation there would have been. So in a situation like that, Atlas, it would probably be something where I'm just like, um going up to him and be like, hey, what'd you have, what'd you order? And you know, just starting a conversation that sort of de-escalates like that. um but as much as you might have felt small in the moment, you probably did the best thing if no one was actually like physically, you know, getting involved. um yeah, because that could have gotten bad and it would not have been worth it for that. But getting back to the question, yeah, it's definitely circumstantial, and it's definitely so I think there's a scale of it. If I have a friend that's dating, right? He's single and he's dating, and he's dating a few girls at once and they don't know about each other. Like, I'm gonna tell him, like, dude, you're gonna end up in a whole bunch of shit over this. You know that. I'm probably gonna leave it alone after that. If my friend is putting his hands on his girl, then me and him are gonna have a very different conversation. I'm not gonna be nice to him about it, right? So that's sort of the, you know, one on either side of the line of, you know, what it is you're doing, of minding your business, or um you know, or calling someone out. Another thing too is like, which way does the influence go? You know, like I mentioned before, like, is someone's bad behavior affecting you in a way where, you know, your character ends up compromised just by influence, or is it the other way where, you know, they're listening to you and they might be listening the, you know, the things that they're doing that they probably shouldn't. That's another huge factor too. um I wrote a bit about it in the blog. um you know, that, well, I think yesterday, came out yesterday, today.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
yeah, a lot about how the guys around you, um, it's kind of like curating a mirror. Because I can't remember where I heard the quote, but that the world is going to tell you who you are, right? How much you want to hear that and what you do with what the world tells you is a whole different thing. But the world's going to tell you who you are, and day to day it changes. Depending on what kind of context you're in, what kind of person you end up showing up to be. If you end up having, brothers around you, it's like curating pieces of the world that will be honest with you and tell you who you are in a way that you can use, right? In a way that, is actually going to help you grow. And if it's not doing that, it's very apparent. Um, I mentioned a time in there where, I was that toxic person, and somehow I ended up with just enough decent dudes around me that, that saw potential that I could be better, and all they did was just not do the dumb things that I did, and were just available when it came to talking about things that I had to get better. And then once I was actually interested in being a decent person, they were just right there. Right? And it's much easier to do theoretically, but in practice, there's all the different influences, and I think the question kind of gets to that. It sometimes it can be hard to figure out when to mind your own business, right? And uh, a lot of friendships between guys end up, we think they're just transactional, um, which sure there is a transactional element to it, but I don't think transactional is the right way. I think that's a cynical way to look at it. I think instead of transactional, it should be reciprocal, um, in a way where it's like, I'm giving and I don't expect anything, and you give and you don't expect anything, and that's just how that just how that bond happens, and just how it flows and how it grows. Um, but yeah, I think that's a mistake that a lot of us make, is that we see relationships as just transactions. There are business relationships, sure, um, but actual brotherhood, like we're talking about, that's not a transaction. It's not that cold. It's not that you can't take the humanity out of it and expect to have good friendships and good people around you. It just doesn't work that way. Um, so yeah, I think
Yeah.
somewhere in there was an answer to what you said.
It was a great answer. Thank you. I'm glad you brought up the blog too. I'm gonna tee you up at the end here to tell us a little bit more about that as well. So thank you for that. Fabian, last but not least, please enlighten
Yeah,
us.
no, it was good. It's funny, like with the guys we have in the room. I know by the time it gets to me, most guys are going to cover a lot of the stuff I was thinking about. The McDonald's example back to Alice, I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, that's a very interesting dynamic, because what is the threshold of you getting involved? And when you do get involved with strangers, you have no idea how that person's going to react. As Stefan mentioned, that could be the one time you decide to step up, and it could be someone that's not on their medication and having a really rough go and in a bad mental state, and they could just end you right there. So is it worth it? Now, had he grabbed her and started a physical interaction, does that change? You know what I mean? There's so many. But what I put down as my note while you guys were talking, my first question always goes to the root cause. Like, what is bad behavior, first of all? Because I think the answer to that could be, now obviously we know at the very high end, okay, someone's taking a bat and they're smashing people's cars, that's bad behavior. But what about when it's right up on over the line? And I think that's going to be different for a lot of different people. I think the way I tend to look at these kinds of situations is, and I'll say between brothers and also with strangers, I tend to look at, is the person doing something intentionally to cause harm to others? Or it, because I find most times in most situations, someone's just doing something that they're more thinking selfishly, not like thinking about themselves, and they're not thinking how what they're saying or doing is affecting other people. And then the other thing I wrote down was timing, and I think Steph said tact, but I'm a really big believer, and you can say anything to anyone, especially people that are a part of your brotherhood, if it's said in the right tone and in the right place. So I think as men, there's an ego thing that sometimes plays. So I think sometimes if you call someone out in the middle of them being heated about something or acting poorly in that situation, and it's in public in front of everyone, you're going to put that person in a position where they might act out even more to defend their ego and whatnot. Minus if you pick a time a little bit later or pull them aside a little bit later, or you're having a one-on-one, you bring it up later when they're not in that moment, and you kind of run them through, this is what it kind of looked like to me, and this is how I think the other person was thinking. I play a lot of devil's advocate, and not to say I'm not on your side, but just to show you what the other side might be. I think that kind of reflection sometimes hits pretty deep. And I, again, from personal experience, and I think Derek was there, I had a moment when I was out and I was in a bad mental state, with my marriage, my first marriage, and where it was going. Um, and there had been a couple incidences in a row where a gentleman had made some comments about my marriage, and by this second time that he was doing it, I was in a not the right mental state, and I acted. I'm not going to get into too many details, but I acted out of character in that situation. Um, and I think that I can understand why it happens to people, where you might act how you would potentially not normally act, especially when emotions and stress and all that stuff gets involved. But definitely after the fact and thinking through the situation, I had a lot of remorse and regret for how I acted. And I think it's all timing. If you had caught me in that moment, I would have said no, this is bad behavior, but that's what's going to happen in these situations. So I think timing is a really important thing. And yeah, back to the brotherhood thing. I think we all want that guy that can come to us and check us to a certain degree. It just needs to be in the right moment, right time, I think.
Yeah, well said. I think the one thing that came to mind, it's the one word I wrote down right at the beginning. I hadn't really thought about this. I still haven't really thought it all the way through. But for me, it was ignorance, kind of on the same thread as Fabian was going with intention. For me, it was ignorance on the other side of the person. Like, when do I feel like I should step in for a brother? It's when I think he actually doesn't know what he's doing, or if he doesn't understand the repercussions, or he hasn't been in that situation before. That's where I feel comfortable being able to step in and say, hey, man, like, here's what I've seen. Here's, like, this is the potential outcomes. Like, just giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's not really thinking it through, to Stefan's example of dating multiple girls, or to Atlas' example of, like, getting involved in a situation like that. Like, I think in those times, and Fabian's story specifically, those guys are acting there without thinking all the way through of how they're acting. So I don't know, ignorance stood out to me as a word that would land for me.
Do you know what's one thing I wanted to add, Derek, and I appreciate you saying that. It's so funny because I do try to pride my life on trying to think about that other person, but in the moment when it was me, I didn't think about what this other guy was going through, and where he could have not intentionally. In my head, it was so intentional what he was doing, but reality after the fact, it wasn't. Like, we ended up we're friends, and we've talked a lot since then, and it's just so interesting that how I was taking it, because it was all those other factors that were pressing on me, that his comments just became astronomically larger than what they were. In his head, he was just teasing a longtime friend, and then what I heard is this guy taking shots at, like, my most broken and most personal thing right now in public. So it was like a double whammy for me. So yeah, 100%.
Which is my point, right? Like, I mean, you're one of the greatest men that we know, and I hold you in very hard regard. But even in those moments, you could have used a brother to check you there a little bit. I'm sure if even it maybe not received, and that could have been one of those high tense situations where maybe I should have minded him, or which I guess I did in a sense. I wasn't right next to you, but in a sense, when you're worked up, maybe to your point of timing, it's like, are you going to interject right then and there and try and talk him off the ledge? Probably not, but you're going to definitely identify it after. So yeah, great conversation there, guys. This last question, I'm going to paint a picture with you. So allow me, I'm going to kind of tell a little bit of a story, okay? And then I'm going to let you guys run with it. So bear with me, I'm going to read off my notes here. Think about this. As adults, we know we crave brotherhood and community. We know it's important. We know there's tremendous amount of value there. And yet, a lot of times we remain in isolation. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because we're not operating really as adults. We are still operating as the younger version of ourselves. For example, a child was told to handle it on its own. A child was told to avoid vulnerability. A child was told to compete rather than connect. But now as adults, nobody is really telling us that anymore. If we were operating as our old wise adult self, we wouldn't remain in isolation. So there's a disconnect between today's adults' reality and our childhood narratives. Okay? Based on this idea, what would you tell the men who think these communities are bullshit, are a waste of time, and don't help? The men who are still operating from the position of their younger self, what would you tell them about these communities and the value it's given you in your life? And I'm going to start with Atlas.
Having technical difficulties over here, but it looks like I'm still here, so that's great. Um, what would I tell ultimately the men who think these communities are a waste of time? They are, if that's the way you walk into them. I mean, you think about it. If that's your narrative, then I love you, and I'll see you when I see you, and it's not going to be here, and that's okay. I think that it's a harsh reality, but I think that it's a bit of how do I frame this? The response in itself of these are bullshit and they're a waste of time and they don't help. I think for me comes across as like I already got it figured out, and I'm not exactly sure how I can support somebody who's not listening. I think there's a great quote that talks about there's nobody more deaf than the person that's not willing to listen. And so I think that kind of comes into play where I invite people or I talk about it, and it's a bit of like a that's gay or that's stupid or what do you just circle jerk around each other? You know, there's all these perspectives of men in these spaces that get pretty tyrannical pretty quick. And I think if I really listen to that perspective, what I hear is in the question, like it is still a younger version of them kind of rebelling against the opportunity to be vulnerable, to be open, to connect, to have a deeper relationship with a guy that actually supports them and moves them forward and calls them forward. So I would say, to wrap myself around here, what would I tell that man? I would say, like I said, no problem. You're right. And you're always welcome anyway. It doesn't change. The moment that you feel like you're open to just showing up, I'm going to be there because I don't need you to come. I want you to come. And what I would love for you to be a part of is this space. And if you believe that it's a waste of time, that's okay too. I think that your time will come when there'll be a space in your life that this value is going to be needed. And there's no way you're going to be able to avoid it. And I'm hoping that we don't have to get there. But if we do, no problem. We'll be here. But ultimately, it's not bullshit. And it took a lot for me too. I didn't want to show up. I went to one a couple weeks ago and they're like, give a phrase of how you're feeling. And I'm like, I'm here. Had a shit day. I don't want to be there. Stupid. What a waste of my time. Just let me hang out on the couch. Doesn't matter. And sure enough, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I left. And I'm like, wow, like complete change. Not because we talked about our feelings, but just because I was able to be in this garbage ass shitty mood where I just didn't want to do anything. And I was this little teenager self, like, one of those, you know? And sure enough, they were like, cool. That's welcome here too. Whatever you're up to, no problem. And I think that's the final piece for me.
Do you think the day that men would find value in these is inevitable?
I would say it's probably on the precipice. It's a good question. I think that I don't know if it has to be this, but I think at the end of the day, as we start to figure out more of how to balance technology, because that's going to be a barrier for quite some time now, I think once we can kind of work together on that, then I don't think that there's going to be many other options for connection because we're going to be pretty isolated. So I think, yes, I would say my belief is yes. I think it's going to have to come to something like this, or at the very least, a continuation of maybe one they've already had. But I know a lot of men who don't have that and come to these spaces and they're like, this is all I got. And so it's pretty powerful. But again, it's like at some point they're going to need to find something. I did.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree at all. Kara Kish, you got an answer for us?
Great answer, Alice. Oh, yeah, because I do agree. Like what you think you're gonna get out of it, like what do you think you know what I mean? Is exactly like it's Wayne Dyer, right? Like, you know, like you think you live in a great world or you don't. You're that's exactly what you're gonna find. So, uh, I think where I would go with that is as well is I think and again I love we're breaking out the quotes. I don't know exactly who it was. I think it was like a U.S. military guy at some point or whatever. But it's oh, they say Steph might help me out here then on that. Maybe I'll let him go. But you don't know until you try. And because I think and especially as men, there's things we know, right? And then there's things we know that we don't know. And then there's things that we don't know, right? And I think that's where the most opportunity in our lives and the most risk both live, right? In those things that we don't know, right? Think about the favorite food that you have right now. You did not know how much you love that until you took the risk and tried it. And I think for anybody that has not stepped into the space of community, and especially in a group like a men's group, a brotherhood, you don't know what you're missing until you've tried it. And much to Atlas's thing, like it's not for everybody. And I think even myself, right? There's chapters in my life where I think I probably would have been a disruption in a group instead of actually a contributing member and holding space, right? It's different. It's just like a book. You go back, you read it one time, you get certain things out of it. You go back 2 years later and you read the same book and it's like a completely different book. So I think where it is trust your gut. And when you feel like there's something missing in your world, there's questions you have and you don't know who to talk to, there's feelings that you've got and you really don't know what to do with them, and you just want to like see how people move, and that there's other people that are feeling the same things you are or have been down the road that you have. I think that groups and brotherhoods are so valuable in that sense, because I think as we've seen in this, I don't think there's been one conversation that we've had or huddles or anything like that, or workshops and live events that we've done where someone has shared a story or what they're navigating in their world or a chapter where they were in their lives or things like that, and then someone doesn't come up to them after and say, man, like that hit me, like right there, I thought I was the only one that was dealing with that or the only one that ever felt that way. And that's where I think community and brotherhood and groups and men's groups like this, you don't know what you don't know. And I'd say give it a shot, man, and see where it goes.
100%. I agree with both you guys there on those last two. You know, you have your days, you have your off days. You don't want to show up, you know, fuck, I gotta go to that goddamn call again. And like, you know, you leave and you're pleasantly surprised. And that's on a call by call basis. Like you're talking about, Atlas, and it's on a kind of more of a macro scale, like you both kind of mentioned in terms of like just the general attendance of attending one of these things. Yeah, it's tremendous. I thought there you were going to, oh, we have some guest speakers tonight. I love it. We had Delilah last time, and now we'll have to get some names and IDs there from Atlas. But Carrie, I thought you were actually going to quote Stefan, which would have been incredible with your American sniper hero individual. I was like, oh, he's going for it.
Not going there. I will quote Steph though. I will quote him though. Blue Jays suck. That's what Steph's quote is for now.
That's misattributed. Definitely got to Snopes that one.
I guess you know what, I've been pretty like on the fence, kind of a bystander to the Let's Chirp Steph train here, but I will jump on it now. I mean, he wants to be a Blue Jays fan so bad, he's trying to steal my identity, literally showing up as Derek Hill on the call here. So, I mean, it's getting tough. I get it,
Yeah,
Steph. There's 3 games left, bro.
Joke's on you. I've been cosplaying Derek Jeter since I was 6 years old. So
okay,
nah.
Yeah. Just the wrong last name. Okay, man. Well, while we got you, go ahead and let us know what you think.
Yeah, so I actually thought of an answer to your second question about these groups being inevitable, and it kind of bleeds into my answer to the original question. Um, So this is, I would say, I don't know, maybe period of the last 30, 40 years is one of the first times in history that we know of, at least in modern civilized history, that men's groups have not been a thing. That the whole lone wolf thing was so normal because we just didn't congregate in groups the same way. I mean, humans have been tribal since the beginning. We would not have been the most dominant species on the planet if we were just all by ourselves. We all would have died one by one very easily. And then you take it all the way back up to 17, 18, 1900s. Those like fraternal organizations, your religious groups and religious organizations, everyone went to church. Um, at least on a pretty broad scale, and you had your communities there, and you had your men's groups, or just the uh n- whatever groups it was you were a part of. That's always been a thing. In different periods in history where military service defined entire generations, they all had their military communities and their military brotherhoods and their bonds like that too. So it's not that these are inevitable as much as like these have always been. We have just found that we need to make a conscious effort to do it again. I think COVID had a lot to do with that too. Um, Now, getting back to the first question, though, about guys to say this thing is a waste of time. Um, in all fairness to them, like some of them absolutely are. We talked about this a little bit last time when we were talking about suicide prevention and awareness. How a lot of these men's groups do, in my opinion, get it so wrong that I'm just like, yeah, that absolutely is a waste of time. Don't see the benefit. Maybe benefits someone, and I could be wrong. I don't know, but a lot of these are a waste of time. I think a lot of these, groups are struggling to get it right, and I don't blame them for going all in on what it is that they're trying to do. Um, but yeah, there's a lot that I'm just like, I never in a million years want to hang out with those guys. And so I shouldn't be a part of them, right? Going back to like what Atlas was saying, if you think it's a waste of time, okay, I'm not mad at you, but like, bye. That's pretty much it. Um, so yeah, and now as far as men's groups in general or gatherings of men on purpose being a waste of time. It's just like, okay, so you just want to meet guys by accident. Sure, whatever you want. But um, very little good happens in isolation, right? And I'm not talking about solitude. I'm not talking about having time to yourself. I'm not talking about being able to just, kind of, center around what it is that you need to be thinking about and doing. I'm talking about like just isolating yourself. I mean, you hear the stories of like the worst people in history, especially when it comes to like serial killers and school shooters and things like that. What's the common thread, among all of them? There's multiple, but one of them is that they were extreme loners. And isolation is always a huge factor in some of the worst things that have happened, in human history. So you don't want to do a men's group because the idea of doing of having a group of guys that you meet with on purpose sounds lame to you. Fine, go away and just have your men's groups by accident. They're going to be the guys that you meet at the gym. They just happen to befriend while you're there because you asked him for a spot and he was kind of cool, so you just talk every time you go, and then maybe you end up hanging out or working out together. Guys you play basketball with, whatever it is that you do on a regular basis, you're going to have your group of guys from there. So if you think a waste of time, it's a waste of time because we actually call it a men's group and do it this way. Okay, fine. I'll see you at the gym.
This this is why I like this guy right there.
Yo.
This is why I like this guy. This is why I'll send him a voice note. I just want to hear his thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think about this? Because when
Yes.
you saw me when he went on to the contrast to how it's actually always been there. I mean, there's no grander truth. We've just let the Industrial Revolution run our lives for however long, and now it's like, hold on a second, like, can we dial it back to what it has always been? But it feels so new, but it's so not new. I could go on a tangent. That was powerful. I'll end it there.
Well said, Fabian. The shoes are big. They're large.
Well, I
But
was
know you got
really
big feet,
hoping
so
you
go
were
ahead.
gonna let Derek Hill end the conversation for us there. I thought you were gonna be nice that you have yourself ending when it's not even yourself. That would have been a cool little
Ooh,
touch.
yeah,
But
that was some Inception stuff right there. Okay.
yeah, no, yeah, honestly, when you go last sometimes with this group of dudes, it's
Sure.
everyone said something super impactful. I'll probably just take two small points from what I took from everybody. For the question of why do we seek out solitude, I don't necessarily think men are seeking out solitude. I think they're just protecting themselves or protecting their egos. I don't think it's them saying, I want to be in solitude. I think it's more like saying, oh, I want to go to this group and talk with guys about different shit. They don't feel comfortable potentially saying that, or they haven't come to the idea of what Carrie said is you don't know what you don't know. I think most people that aren't getting certain things in life aren't doing it on purpose. They're just doing it because they aren't aware of what that could be. Like before we did this, it's shocking to me that we didn't do this before. But until we got into it and fell into this, what we've been doing based off of circumstances, now we get this all the time, and I never want to stop it, right? But before that, we never used to do this, and one of the biggest excuses I get all the time is from one of my cool friends. Yeah, you know who you are. I'm giving the quotations. Is, I already got a good group of friends. Like, we talk about shit. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm in that group. I'm there. I'm there with you all the time. You don't. It's different. There is a distinct difference between these guys in this room and the guys that I hang out with on a regular basis and what we talk about and what we challenge each other on. And when I leave these conversations feeling there's a distinct difference. All right. And that's not taking anything away from my friendships with all the good friends that I have, but this is different. So to me, that's what I would say to the guys is listen, I get why you're saying what you're saying, but I'm telling you it's different. And it's one of those things until you actually go and not go and just go, until you actually go and like participate, like really fully participate, you won't know. You just won't. And I'll leave the last piece I'll leave is, and we I think we talked about it last time. I go back to a few huddles ago when it was just Atlas and I. And to be fair, if we had left the conversation of 45 minutes of me just talking to Atlas, even we both started that conversation and neither of us was like we neither of us were in it. But by the end, I was like, this has been dope catching up with Atlas. So even that, and then that guy comes in at the very end, and we have that deep conversation with him, and you could see he was just longing for just someone to, and I know that guy. I see him all the time, and we never talked about that. So you're telling me it's the same, but I have seen it firsthand that it's not. With guys that I see all the time, we don't have those conversations, and you come into a room like this, and it's just different. So I'll leave it there.
Very well said, gentlemen. All around the room, that was a great chat around brotherhood, and yeah, I'm excited for the month ahead. Obviously, we're going to be touching on brotherhood throughout the month. A couple of huddles. The next one coming up is Carrie next Tuesday, which would be the 14th, I believe, at 7 p.m. And then add 10 days. Actually, I'm kidding. I'm just going to check my calendar. The Sunday huddle, Atlas, can you help me? What is the date?
26th.
Boom! October 26th, 10 a.m. So yeah, two huddles. We're going to be chatting brotherhood. Before we go, we have our obviously brilliant author who writes all our blogs with us and also budding Riverside podcast superstar, Stephanie Irizarry, Yankees guy up there. Anyways, no, yeah, much love, and I appreciate would you tell us a little about the blog?
Yeah, I think we pretty much like said all of it like within this conversation already. But yeah, it's pretty much like the foundation of the conversation that we've been having. Curating pieces of the world that will actually give you a clear picture of who it is that you are on any given day. Talking a little bit about kind of what my experience was when I was kind of when I was that toxic person, and the example of dating multiple girls, that was me, back in the day. I still hear it from my wife all the time because she met me right in the middle of that, and she was the one that got me to be like, yeah, I need to stop doing this because I just want to be with this one. Um, but you know, what I remember out of that was who fell away after I came out of a phase like that and who stuck around and why. And it was the same thing for both of them. The ones that fell away were the ones that minded their own business when they probably should have said something, um, or just encouraged and enabled the toxicity that I refuse to stop engaging in. And the ones that stuck around, I mean, we all pretty much ended up on a similar a trajectory so similar that I don't think there's any of us that don't, have a family at this point, or haven't progressed in their careers or just, done something decent. Not that everyone is, is rich and affluent and, is flying around the world or anything, but like everyone's doing well. Um, well enough that they can say like, I'm happy with where I've ended up and how I've turned out. And, that's because we're able to reflect off of each other. It's because we're able to be like, hey, we should stop doing this and start doing this instead. And, those are the ones that emerged and stuck around to where, those are the kinds of friends that even 10, 15 years later, I'll still be able to, now I can still call on and talk to, and that I'll still be able to for, as long as we're all around. Um, so yeah, it's kind of what the blog was getting at, a little bit of that, as well as everything that we've been talking about tonight. Being able to check the guys that that you consider brothers, why it's important, and answering the question indirectly of why it's not a waste of time to be doing this, and why it's so important. So yeah, um, everybody should go check it out.
Beautiful. Very well said. Excited to read it. It's on mensleague.com for everybody who wants to check it out. Gentlemen, as always, it has been my pleasure to spend the hour with you guys and chat brotherhood and all things men. So looking forward to next month, and we will talk to you all very, very soon.
One thing, just make sure if you aren't following us, check us out on the socials, Men's League. And if you're a man and you haven't yet joined the Discord, we implore you to do so. A lot of great guys in there, good conversations, lots of updates, and we're hoping to get some live events coming soon too. So looking forward to it. Appreciate you gentlemen as always. Mad love to the crew.